The four committees are health and safety, mass care, economic recovery, and communications. And I apologize, I'm not on Zoom, I'm just on my phone, so I'm not sure who else is here. So speak up if I say something that you feel like you want to add to.
Okay.
Health and safety, predominantly Colleen's area. Continue to see trends. We all know the school status, really good town hall meeting about school last night from the school board. Any other updates or questions, or does everybody feel like they're sort of apprised of what's going on related to our current numbers and status?
I think so. And just on the school side, I kind of wanted to talk through and think tank a bit on what steps we might be able to take, or the board, if the board and the county are going to kind of align with any action with school opening. You know, what are those activities that we can what are some people's thoughts? What is palatable? You know, some of it might not be palatable, but might be something we need to do, of course. You know, I have not been able to think through any kind of a complete resolution on it, but I wonder if, you know, not necessarily, you know, how do we separate visitors from any of that population, or I don't know, how do we separate traffic, or do we stop, you know, encouraging the inflow from certain areas? I'm not sure. Again, I'm just kind of talking out loud.
No, that's okay. So I hear, is there two questions in there? One is about visitors and business, and one about school. Was that right, or did I?
Yeah, well, the school, I want to be sure, we want to think about what our mitigation plan looks like. And part of that is, you know, when school opens, we will do X, Y, and Z to be sure that exposure and spread of COVID doesn't happen. Now that a lot of those actions will take place within the school district, but are there things that we have heard, you know, of concern from the school district regarding issues with tourists and visitors, or you know, the school is going to be doing outdoor activities, so maybe it's just signing and kind of dedicating open space for that outdoor learning programming through the first 4 to 6 weeks of school opening, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Sarah, would you be able to give, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Colleen's not on, is she?
No, I don't, nope.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
I'll say who's on, Janine, because you called in. So Chad's here, Kristen's here, Donna Childress is here, Sarah Dallas, and Amit is on with IT as support.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sarah, would you be able to give the group kind of a quick overview of what was discussed and or decided with the school board meeting?
Sure. The one thing I can tell you for sure, and I'll have to pull up the website, but is the extension of the start of school got pushed another 2 weeks. So the start of school, instead of August 17th, is now going to be August 31st. They also decided to start school in a phase. Let me look.
August 31st, I think.
Yep, August 31st is the start. I'm just trying to look for information on, and I think they're still trying to really develop some of those phases, but they're really working on trying to pull up the website.
I think I have it downloaded, Sarah. Let me grab it. I might have it.
I'm running out of coffee, guys, so you might lose me here in a minute.
Coffee.
I can share, if you want to let me share screen, I can share
Yeah.
the packet.
Okay.
Dad, is that a warning that we need to be more lively and entertaining?
No. I just need to be smart enough to get more coffee.
Are you not able to share your screen? I think you can, Sarah.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So this was their packet that they talked about, and they have kind of these different guideposts and what they're planning to do. And the next several days, they'll be talking to the community about it. They have some meetings, I think, tonight and through the week to kind of explain how they're opening. They push back the opening day. They're giving parents the opportunity to go to online only if they want. And basically, they've got these frequently asked questions, and it's kind of guidance from the state of how they're going to be doing their mitigation tactics. So they go through all of the potential risks, et cetera. Sorry, I'm trying to get to what would be relevant for everyone to know. So basically, they're going to have cohorts, and they're going to be doing, a Monday, Wednesday schedule, and for like group A, and group B will be Tuesday, Thursday. Those Monday students, if there's a holiday, they will have to come in on that following Friday. And that will help them be able to lower the risk and kind of keep them in these cohorts and keep them quarantined. They also have a threshold of how many teachers can be coming in to the rooms based upon student count and age groups. So they're also working through that, and kind of like also working in conjunction with public health department, regarding where we're at for our community in terms of potential risk with, what's happening in the community spread. I think those are like the most relevant. What else or questions?
That's huge.
I think it was interesting for me to learn through the last couple of meetings, the school board meeting and the town hall last week, that there seems to be a lot of contention between the teachers and the administration. Teachers seem to be very concerned about health and safety, their health and safety, and how this is really going to play out. The other curiosity I had was on, or one of the bigger things I think that we will be looking at is how to boost some of those hotspots and make sure that everybody has access, of course, to broadband and an online platform. Yeah, I think that's. We don't yet know. We don't have, and Kayla, I see, jumped on and now has joined us. Also for your information, Janine. I don't know. I know Kayla has spoken with Bethany. I have not spoken with Bethany directly, and I believe that we're going to request, a meeting with the school board and public health to better understand. Because as far as I know right now, and Kayla can correct me if I'm wrong, there isn't any specific requests coming from the school district for the county.
Say that one more time, Sarah.
I was saying I don't think that we've gotten any specific requests coming from us, from the school district for support. Last we talked as a board with Paul Anderson from the schools. He was talking about the dinners being canceled and kind of that kind of support in the distribution of food. But I believe that unmet needs and other committees and human services have kind of those resources covered.
Yeah. So the ask I think that the school district is going to present us with is for CARES funding specifically. And I'm sorry, I just hopped on and I'm not sure if I heard the entire just
were-
as a conversation, but
Yeah, we were just updating the group on the decisions of the school district, and Sarah pulled up the site, and we were trying to talk through, the cohort planning a little bit.
Okay, yeah, the only request specific to that is maybe potentially some that Bethany wants to talk to us about Monday is potentially some job shifting, and maybe some funding to assist with the cohort as they're easing back into school.
I'm also really wondering what the businesses and our community members are going to need for childcare. And so I think we should frame it in not just the school district needs, but also childcare. And also, to that note, where Bright Start's going to be. Because right now they're displaced. They have storage in the Tabor barn at the city. They're trying to work with the school district to go into the pits as interim, But I already have a couple friends who've been reaching out to me for their children for next week because their primary nannies are off to college or moving along, and they have this gap need. And I know that it's not isolated to one person. I know that this is going to be a growing need. So
yeah. So just to add on to that, Bright Start is hoping to be able to be moved into space and up and operational September 1st in Pitts. They're working on some of the details around finalizing like an MOU and that type of thing with the school district. So they're going through that right now. They do need to have a door buzzer system put into place that they don't have funding for, that the estimated cost for that is going to be $2,600, so $2,600. And they have to have that little sink put in for the children inside the classroom space. And so they have one rough estimate for that right now from a local contractor of costing roughly $10,000 to plumb that in into the Pitts classroom. And so I think that they may potentially have some grant funding to do the sink part, but they may need some funding for the security doorbell system. But I have not had a formal request for that at this point. But with that being said, I still think that we do have a gap in childcare needs, because if the school district has that one day in, one day off type of thing, and still not having school on Fridays, I still think that we have a gap with childcare beyond the infant, toddler, preschool aged group of children, above that slightly. So
this is Janine. Yeah, I think that's going to continue to be an issue. I just got off a state meeting where they were saying, what are we doing about childcare when kids are at home? Like just half in school, half at home time doesn't necessarily mean that parents home if they're having to work. So, what does that look like? Yeah. It's an ongoing need. I think the other thing to think about that, and sort of that deeper level thing, is how is this whole process helping to build resiliency for youth during a pandemic as well? So, like, it's about them getting into school and learning, but it's also about coping and, giving them structure and reliability and routine that helps with crisis, which is good. And I'm wondering if it may be that some of those needs show up once they get started. I don't know what their outdoor education program is going to look like, but if it needs some more support, maybe that's part of it. They could end up needing something in particular, but I would like to see any funding that's provided to really help them focus on, and maybe it's something they just don't feel like they have the capacity to do, or as I said, we could research it even a little bit more, and we have to some degree, but what's going to help kids not only survive this time, but do well through all of this?
yeah, Janine, that's kind of also my question is, what additional tools are we going to need to provide? Because we know that we already have a gap with equity in education by being in a rural community anyway. And so we're widening that gap now because we don't have things like accessible broadband and transportation and those type of things. And so we're widening that gap now. We're not, you know, and the CARES Act funding only goes so far. So, I mean, we're not in a place where we can say, here, school district, we're going to give you $200,000 and you can draw down on that for the next 12 months. I mean, we're not in a place where we can do that, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. So just to clarify, while you're speaking about CARES Act, does it need to all be spent out by December, or does it need to be allocated out to departments or organizations? Does it need to actually be spent?
It needs to actually be spent.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just thought I would clarify. Yeah, and I feel bad even raising that to the school board or the school district because they're working so hard just to get any infrastructure and some system set up. But even as I listen to it, I all I can think about is all the kids this is not going to work for, and all of our wraparound families that are going to, you know, their kids are going to struggle with this, and they're going to be expelled, and so we better be prepared for some kind of program or some kind of something. Because, and we're talking about kids who were expelled before the pandemic, and we're struggling. So, you know, we process a little bit what our options are going to be, but I think we better be prepared for some kind of, you know, maybe they just stay at home, but what do they do if parents really need to work? You know, I think that's tough. So anyway, Chad, that was any answer to your question?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the overview. I appreciate it.
So Kayla, what I was doing was just sort of walking through our committee, starting with health and safety. And that's how we got on the topic of the status of school, plans for that. Anything else around the current health picture that you all want to share?
I don't think I have anything.
Sarah, I really love that press release from Summit that you shared. I don't know if they really want to send out that message, but I love that they were evaluating whether the number of positive cases were from visitors or from locals. And I think it's helpful because it helps us determine if the messaging is working.
Right. Right. No, I think it's important for us to explain that because the sense of the community is still very polarized, you know, as maybe to be expected. And I think, yeah, I mean, we, you know, to be honest, I was starting to come to a point of thinking, you know, with the lack of leadership on a national level, we're not, you know, I mean, I think we all know we're not beating COVID, right? But
right.
Like if the state is not, if we don't have answers to address school or economy or unemployment, and we are planning to shut down, or regardless of even if we do have then what does that look like? And nobody's talking about that. I really don't think that that's coming. You know, we're not going to close Colorado state borders probably, but is that, you know, with the visitorship, I mean, is that something to look at, or how can we collect information to understand how much of an overlap with commuter parents whose kids are at school and go to Eagle and Summit, or that transmission from visitorship, I think really worries a lot of people. But that's not to say that, you know, you don't have to go downtown. You don't have to necessarily expose yourself. But what kind of...
Well, I know Dr. Lisa's hesitant to release some of the details, but I also wonder if we're seeing it, is it from particular areas? Are these people traveling within Colorado or traveling from out of state where they're coming from a state where there hasn't been a mask requirement?
Right.
And now they're coming in and we're having to like re-educate their whole norms.
Right.
And if that's the case, then what do we need to do that effectively instead of putting it on our businesses?
Right.
But I don't know that we have that data. Or maybe we do, we just don't want to share it because you know,
I don't know. We need more information, and that it's got to be somewhere.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the health and safety piece. The other one, I'll go, if we can cover mass care and then communications and then do the economic recovery if that works for folks.
Yep.
Mass care is working well. I sent an email to Kayla and Sarah and Kaylee and Colleen earlier today to just sort of give them a status update. We are continuing to provide financial assistance. It's all being done through Full Circle, who has a caseworker. We have an ad out today for a caseworker position to help assist with that work, especially in connection to getting folks onto public benefits and or access to other services in the community, including mental health services. But we continue to see a population of folks who I'll just say are being exploited and fall into that labor force where they're either contract workers or they're undocumented and they get sick and they get COVID and they can't work and they are the main source of income for their family and they're not getting paid sick leave. And it's really been stressful for folks. And that combined with other issues, one of them being fear of deportation. We've had at least one deportation this spring in the community, and people are just under a lot of mental health stress. So we're looking at potentially putting on a training or holding a meeting for, particularly in Spanish, and we could do it in English as well, but we're really recognizing that there's just this huge gap in the Spanish-speaking community. And the training would be related to mental health first aid, followed up by how can you access a therapist versus telehealth. You're just on your phone and have it paid for, and how do we help you find someone, and making sure that we don't lose anybody in our community. And then combined with, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
One of the things in your email you said was that Sol Vista does not have a bilingual staff person for our area. Is that something that we can hire for?
They are always trying.
Okay.
The thing that we can try to do is a lot of appointments, they have gone back to in-person, but a lot of appointments have gone to telehealth as well. And I know they have, I do believe at least, they have some staff that are bilingual, may not be in Leadville. That's what we're going to do, is reach out to, it doesn't even have to be a provider who's close physically. It could be, front range folks who are offering telehealth as well. And we can pay for those services through our PA3 funding. If there's any children in the household, we can just pay for those mental health services and see if we can connect folks to that. So it could be Sol Vista, but it's likely going to have to be a telehealth option where there's, and I can check in with Mandy, but I know they're always looking for people who are bilingual, and both for admin staff and therapists. But I do think this telehealth trend has helped maybe ease that language access piece. So that's one of the things to try to focus on. We also talked about, related to financial assistance, we're allocating about $10,000 to $15,000 every 2 weeks, now, in financial assistance. And these are funds that are still available through the Lake County Community Disaster Relief Fund. And then Full Circle and Build a Generation has some funding. And it's specifically to folks, set up for folks who don't have access to any other supports like unemployment or stimulus. Back when we got a stimulus check years ago. It seems like forever ago. So we're going through that. The great news is we were reimbursed all of the disaster TANF funds that we provided in the last state fiscal year, which ended June 30. Nice. So we also have that opportunity in this state fiscal year. I'm hesitant to just jump in gung-ho and give that all away, because we do not know what this year is going to look like. but we do have access to some more disaster Tanf funding. It is specifically for households with children 18 and under, and somebody in the household needs to be at least a legal permanent resident. And the other piece that I just want to update on is that we are expecting a huge housing crisis to hit when the federal declaration ends and the eviction moratorium ends. Projections from in the state of Colorado at least, are that 33% of people renting will be evicted when that happens. We have really tried to stay on top of that in Lake County and make sure people are not getting too far behind, that landlords are referring people to us, but we know we're not reaching everybody, and we can't affect what an international corporation does with their properties. So I'm also thinking that may be the time we're going to have to help people the most, and not knowing whenever that's going to be. To your point, Sarah, we don't know how long this is going to go on and what's going to happen. Or if there can be some kind of, legislatively at the state or federal level, can we do something to ease that cliff, to help pay landlords so that folks are not in this bind where they're looking at homelessness? I mean, that just seems like a horrible end to all of this. Mm-hmm. But that's the prediction. We've already seen the drop off of the additional unemployment this week. We're seeing huge numbers of folks enrolling in public assistance. And
what do you mean, Janine, you broke up a little bit there. What do you mean the drop off of the unemployment?
The additional amount, sorry.
Oh, just that has stopped.
The $600 additional pandemic unemployment has ended.
Right.
And they did not reauthorize at the federal level any additional amounts. That could happen, but we're already seeing folks worried about that. And there are other things going to be happening to Medicaid with an automatic recertification. We're looking at fall for that, for people to have to be recertified. People are going to have to be recertified for food assistance starting this month. So, and if they aren't paying attention, they may end up dropping off of SNAP accidentally if they don't get documentation and paperwork in. So then we'll be looking at trying to get them re-enrolled. So all of that's going to be coming.
Janine, do we have somebody at school registration to inform folks of some of these resources if they don't already know it?
We've already sent somebody to school registration. They didn't reach out to us this year. I can check and see if we could send somebody over there or how they're getting the word out.
Or are we, did you connect with Paul and is there I guess, have we downloaded?
Leslie would call us and we would send somebody over. Usually Leslie would call us and we would send somebody over there, but I will check with our staff and see. Yeah, good point.
I just feel like if we haven't already downloaded some of the training the trainer or the right person at the school district to help continue to spread the education on resources, we should do that unless I'm missing.
That's good. And in one of our state meetings yesterday with Connect for House Colorado, they were talking about still the very best outreach possible is sticking flyers in your children's take-home folder at school. So
yeah,
see if we could do that.
Well, those stickers are the best on their clothes that you have to take off to launder.
Yeah. The one bright side, I will say, pandemic EBT is just now coming out. If you haven't heard about it, you're probably just now getting wind of it. And there are some glitches with it just because it's being run through the Department of Education and their data integrity isn't, they don't typically administer benefits. So some of their data integrity is not quite there. And we're hearing of people who have 4 kids in a household and they got payment for 3 of the kids, but don't know where the 4th kid's payment is. And this is a $279 per child who was on free and reduced lunch in the school system, one-time payment to a household. If they weren't on free and reduced lunch, there's a way for them to apply. They can go to the PEAK website, Department of Education, or contact the school. And if there are any mistakes or errors in what they get, or if they want more information. or to apply. It is not through us, but we are sort of answering questions and directing folks. It's a huge influx of resources, and hopefully that will help as I know dinners were sort of dropping off, dinner delivery for the schools, and this is a huge influx. So they will see that. And if schools should close down for any reason, then those pandemic EBT benefits would be reinstituted as well. So we're encouraging people to hold on to the cards that they get once they get them. Any questions on any of that I just went over?
I have a question, you know, learning and hearing still firsthand that there are people who have not left their houses for 3 or 4 months. Are you all receiving any feedback about, or thinking like, I mean, this is the careful thing to say, right? Like, I don't mean to encourage people to get out and get in harm's way and expose themselves and worry, but I mean, has that emerged as a big issue, or ways that we need to kind of provide better, safer spaces for people to escape to, if you will?
I don't know. I will say that the senior meal program is still being delivered. They're doing, and that's working well. I have not heard from Chrissy Galarza if I think they're still doing grocery deliveries from volunteers, but I will check on that. I do know St. George's is doing some home delivery, and that's pretty robust too. In fact, some of it's transportation related, I think, for St. George's in terms of people being able to get in and pick it up versus somebody bringing it to them. You know, and the health order is still, recommendation is for people at risk to not get out too much. And it could be that they have figured out and navigated how to do that. I could check in on some of those sources and see if they are still doing a lot of that service. I know the Senior Center is still doing some pretty consistent programming, but yeah, we could find out a little bit more, or I think it's a mixed thing. They may not want to get out. They may not have transportation to get out. They might not feel safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Mass care?
Janine, I only have one quick question for mass care. You know, let's say hypothetically that we go back into a situation where school opens, we end up having somewhat of a surge. Is it going to be helpful for us to have information ahead of time about a mitigation plan if we were to say, okay, we need to walk backwards in a public health order? Would it be helpful for us in our recovery efforts to have that information, and especially in terms of mass care, because I think that would affect families in terms of job loss or food or childcare or whatever that might look like?
It probably wouldn't hurt. I heard the school talk a lot about the green, yellow, red, right? Was there an orange in there too? I can't remember. But which zones they're in. We've seen a little bit of that, where we had bars and restaurants reopen and then some of them had to close down again. I do think we probably should have some kind of plan in place in terms of, what's a likely scenario. And, likely would probably be bars and some restriction on restaurant, and what would that look like from both the business owner perspective and the employees. And I also think, and we've heard before, that what is winter going to look like? That's the other thing we talked about this morning in our Unmet Needs Committee is folks who usually worked the summers in resort communities, held on during the mud season and then prepared for the winter, are now finding themselves holding on all summer and not knowing, what mud season or fall is going to look, or, what fall is going to look like, and then if they're going to have a job in the winter. So I think we're already there in some of those industries, and that's what we're continuing to see. I think it probably wouldn't hurt to have a plan in terms of, if people are told to stay put or businesses close, what does that mean? And I think it's mostly going to be an economic impact and mental health. I would say we're seeing that on a mini scale in some communities, right, that don't have all those protections in place. They go back to work, they're getting COVID, or they're getting it from a family member, and they're back to square one all over.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Are there, this might be more of the, I know at the beginning, or maybe it wasn't even, it was maybe just pre-COVID of how to create projects that we could employ people locally, you know, and I'm just wondering, I'm just throwing it out there, if we do look at having to do some sort of bailout, for lack of a better word, and not necessarily to businesses, or, you know, we will get to that point in our conversation here today. But, you know, are there things that we could employ people to do locally, even on a temporary basis? And how might we create that and develop that?
yeah, maybe. And Chad, I'm thinking of some of the things that Latino leaders shared that maybe we can share a little bit in terms of like local opportunities. But I also think of things like, you know, how do we pay local restaurants to provide food to people in some way? You know, like that kind of thing. Like if the money's there and we're going to be getting it to people, can we make it work so that we're not like giving grant money to businesses and giving financial assistance to households, but we could be sort of cross-walking those and sharing resources some way. Yeah. You know, I would say that would come with a little bit of the assessment. We could maybe dig in and see who was out of work the last time and what skill sets they have and what needs are out there. Yeah, that might be a possibility. Okay. Last committee is communications. I know in our after action review, Kaylee referred a lot to a communications plan that I think Beth was sort of drafting, or maybe she expected the committee to work on specifics to emergency. Anybody have information on that, or Donna, any more on that?
I'm not sure what Beth is working on with that. The only thing that I have is not directly related to that, but just an update on the tourism panel has applied for craft funding, which is Colorado Rural Academy for Tourism. And we sent in a letter of intent. We have a call next week to talk through that with the CTO, but they have not yet received the funding from the federal level that they hope to receive to be able to make the grants. It doesn't mean that they won't, but they haven't yet. So right now the process is to kind of talk through the needs with the different destinations that applied, so that when they know how much funding they have, they'll have some, but perhaps not the amount they want. They'll know how best to customize their offerings to help destinations. So that's the status on that.
What's the request from the tourism panel, Donna?
So it's a letter of intent. It's not an application yet. They're not at that stage. And we basically submitted what the needs were, what some of the impacts were that we were seeing from COVID-19. And we submitted it earlier this month, so, or July actually. So they have it. That process is working along. I feel like what we sent in was pretty strong. So we just kind of have to wait and see at this point. But they're basically trying to get information from destinations that would be interested as they're waiting to hear what the federal funding would be. And they're hoping to offer a bunch of workshops and then implementation funding up to $10,000. But again, we won't know what will be available until they hear back from their federal application.
And what was identified in your letter of intent?
So we just kind of went through what some of the impacts were in terms of effect on lodging and effects on restaurants and effects on businesses. So Chad and Marla and Tracy from the chamber and Steve Whittington, Andy from Twin Lakes joined in as well, got together and put all that together. I mean, we always want to include Twin Lakes, but we definitely wanted to in this case because they're looking for more of a regional application. So not just one community, but they want to look at a bigger area. And when I went to the webinar back earlier in July that talked about the application, they said specifically, yes, that a county level does apply, especially for our smaller county. It didn't seem to make sense to us to partner with somewhere like Eagle or Vale at this point, just because of the wide discrepancy in funding and what some of our initiatives might be. We are working with Dave Santucci on this too, which, as you know, he's contracting directly with the panel now. He's also contracting with the state on some of this work. And the state is aware of that and thinks actually that it's great. It's a benefit that he knows our destination so well. So he's who we'll be talking to, but sort of in a different role of his next week. And one of the things that he said that the state is really looking for is probably, when we apply, like if we get funding, that one thing that would help us is to say that we are going to be using those funds for Colorado tourism office type advertising. So basically turning the funding around, but investing in things that they're doing for the whole state.
And I think some of the biggest needs identified in that letter of intent were fall, winter, making sure that we have support and funding there for in the worst case scenarios, if the ski resorts are closed, and the national message, even if it's not the message we're sending, is more don't travel to Colorado, or again, if the ski resorts are closed, I think it's going to be difficult to kind of get our voice out there a little bit louder than just that message that, well, they must be closed. So I think those were the biggest kind of needs that we identified in that. Is that correct, Donna?
Yeah, definitely. One of the questions was, what are the main needs for your destination right now? And we did say fall and winter, that we were concerned about visitation. We mentioned the seasonality of Twin Lakes and how, they will be closing, and, so except for the limited work that they do in the winter to attract tourists, that would definitely be a big need. And then the state so far is not advertising outside of the state. I'm not sure, if that will be changing anytime soon, but because of the restrictions, they're marketing only in state right now. But I think that we're still in a good position, as long as travel is allowed, to continue to attract people that are coming up from the Front Range. I mean, that's where a lot of our people come from anyway. And so
Yeah.
It's been helpful, to have that as one of our geographical targets this year.
I think that's a piece of that resiliency too. If locally and regionally and as a state, we can support ourselves. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense and probably makes people feel a bit better from that COVID and safety standpoint, health and safety, perhaps.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Well, thank you.
Yep, we'll keep you posted.
Okay, so economic recovery. Chad, and then Chad gave us a great overview last time. Are there questions from that, or what would you like to do with this time focused on economic recovery, Chad?
I believe we are in economic recovery. I think business advocacy and resiliency, however, I would love to report on. We had a meeting last week, but I think we did not do a good job of scheduling that meeting because it overlapped with Office of Emergency Management, I believe, and a lot of you were in that meeting. So the main objectives for that particular meeting last week was to start transitioning or at least moving some of our efforts now away from initial contacts and initial meetings with business owners, initial conversations, collecting that information back from them, to really focusing on the big name in our title, advocacy. What are we advocating for? And secondarily, if we're going to be pursuing follow-up meetings with businesses that we've already spoken with, to see what, if anything, has changed, if they have any ideas, if any new issues have come up, et cetera, that they would like us to communicate back to the larger group. So we did some quick check-ins and housekeeping updates on that committee. Janine and myself, we met with Líderes last week, and they are working on getting their interview notes with Spanish-speaking business owners in through the Google Forms that we had set up, so we can fold that information in to the total data set. We're about 40 right now. I have not double checked as of yesterday or today to see how many more we have as far as initial contacts. Exciting news in regard to Spanish-speaking business outreach. John Trineri with SCORE has really been incredibly helpful, as has the Small Business Development Corporation, in identifying multi and bilingual resources that we can go back to those Spanish-speaking business owners and offer. I think one of the weaknesses we've had since the beginning of this effort is that, you know, Líderes has been great in reaching out and holding these conversations at first, but they cannot commit. They don't have the capacity to commit to be advocates for business owners in the long term. In fact, I believe really the commitment is through the end of August at this point. So the imperfect solution so far has been, hey, tell them to reach out to Chad. Sonia Luna, thanks very much to the county for having her available to help me out with translation and interpretation. And Sonia would help interpret so that they could at least be communicating with me, and I could help connect them with additional resources. But SCORE and the SBDC have identified a couple of different resources that we can now share back with that community. I just spoke with one of a Spanish-speaking SCORE mentor today out of Colorado Springs. She is very excited to be able to help us out. She offered her translation services if she is not the expert to help in the mentoring process. And I believe either the director of the San Luis Valley OEDIT or the SBDC down there, I believe his name is Jason Medina off the top of my head, has also offered his services so that folks will have somebody to rely on instead of having to always go through an intermediary like me who can't speak Spanish, and then a translator like Sonia, and then, you know, end up with layer after layer, which would probably discourage any outreach. So I'm excited about those things, and I will be putting together a packet. I was hoping to have it today, but I do not have it done. But really putting together a packet today for Líderes to share out with those business owners, and for us to have on hand, and the EDC to have on hand for our Spanish-speaking business owning community. We have just said, yes, we will certainly be continuing with our initial outreach efforts to try to reach as many businesses as possible. I think that just needs to be an ongoing effort. You know, some businesses are dropping off the list who would prefer we don't contact, but we need to keep building that out. I mean, I think our latest list was, and we know that's an imperfect list, was somewhere around 250 businesses that are located in Leadville or Lake County. And again, we're only close to 50 right now. So I think we really need to try, at least over the next month or two, to get out to more of those businesses. Even if we can get up to 100, you know, at some point here through September, that would be great. And I think we'll also find in September and October, folks, business owners will have a little bit more time and capacity to meet with us and get us some information. So we're going to continue to do that outreach. We are also going to hopefully over the next 2 or 3 weeks start reaching back out to businesses that we've already talked to. I know the intrepid Kristen Logan is going to be building some new Google Forms for us, so we really appreciate that, Kristen. And the discussion points will be very simple for that particular follow-up conversation, as opposed to our last set of discussion points. And the Google form will also be much more simple. Pretty much industry sector and what else do we need to know? How are you doing now? Has anything changed, etc. So just basically one big feedback form instead of a bunch of separate questions. So we're interested really in those follow-up conversations. I've been having them just kind of randomly throughout town over the past couple of weeks. Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of the things that we originally reported on for the beginning of June, you know, have changed a little bit. So we want to get that information back out to you folks as well. But the big thing we really discussed was, what are we going to start advocating for? And because of the fact that we didn't really have some key members of that group available in that meeting last week, we are scheduling a meeting for this coming week. I believe we've scheduled that for Thursday at 2 p.m. And in that meeting, the Business Advocacy and Resiliency Subcommittee really wants to decide with the group together and hone in on the 3 or 4 biggest things that we need to start advocating for, and then come back to this group and the leaders in our various organizations and start pushing for some things to get done, so we can go back to the businesses when we have the follow-up communications and say, hey, we heard you, we listened, and this is what we're doing. We've identified what we hopefully think are some easy wins for all of our organizations and for this group and the economic recovery group, of things we can accomplish fairly quickly if we all buy in and if we all work to get things done, that we can go back to our businesses and you know, that's really how we build the trust is by getting these things done. So we've identified some. I'm not really comfortable identifying those right now in this group until we really decide fully on those. I think I probably had individual conversations with a few of you about some of these items, but we will be talking about that stuff next Thursday and get back in touch with you each on an individual basis, I'm sure, and all of our organizational leaders to see how quickly we can get some of these things accomplished. Number 4 on the list, which kind of really didn't come up too much in relation to the pandemic, although I know it is tangentially related, and might have an impact on some of the grant funding opportunities that are out there right now, is public bathrooms. So if there are any funding opportunities out there in relation to public bathrooms or plans for public bathrooms or public spaces available to build public bathrooms, our business owners are really screaming out for that. And also I have offered myself up as the sacrificial lamb, Main Street program. If you find that the bathrooms in Zeitz Park are not open on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, give me a call directly. I am now responsible for unlocking those bathrooms, so please let me know. I have also reached out to CDOT. Just got an answer today about reprogramming the variable message signs at the north and south entrances of Leadville with a message about masks, etc. A mask message specifically is not allowed as part of their guidelines. However, we could list a website that says, for COVID information or for fire safety information, please visit this website. That's what you see on I-70 going into Summit County. I did follow up on that. I am 99.9% sure that they will not be able to say no for that. But in order to make that happen, we need that centralized website that we can list on there. So that's a little bit of a preview and an overview of what we've been working on. And yeah, we're meeting next Thursday, and we'll have more information about our top 3 or 4 priorities that we need to get working on now, so we can prove to businesses that this is not a pointless effort. Questions?
Thank you so much, Chad. I know, Kayla, you weren't able to hear Chad's presentation, but you got the document. Is there anything that you had as follow-up questions from the last time?
No, I don't have anything right now. I had an opportunity to meet with Chad this morning and kind of go over any lingering questions or anything that I had. So I feel pretty comfortable and confident there.
Thank you again for your time this morning, Kayla.
Yeah, thank you.
Chad, who'd you talk with at CDOT?
What's that?
What?
I was asking Chad who he spoke with at CDOT. I'll ask him on the side.
I believe Mr. Mark Bunnell and Alan Club. I actually spoke with both of them today.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that did come up in the leaders feedback, which I just think is worth sharing, and this goes to a little bit about what you were saying before, Sarah, is there a way we could just come up with some projects to spend money on locally if everything sort of shuts down again? one of the local contractors said he doesn't know how to bid on local work. That he gets work, at different places around the state. I'm not sure where he's going for that, but he wanted technical assistance and support. He said, I see all this work going on in our community and I don't know how to bid for that local work. And maybe it's, not the right avenue, but that's where that SCORE mentor could be super, super helpful. Another comment that was made just in general was that when the person reached out, they said they didn't realize that anybody cared how they were doing. They just didn't realize that they were important in the community. And so I just thought that was so telling, sad, and, also I'm really glad that we're doing this at the same time. And I don't think they have felt terribly included if they've been sort of just doing their work, working hard, and so I think there's opportunities to look at what could be some foundations from us going forward. What do we need to do to meet people's needs? And is there a need for some kind of structure that could ongoing help feel connected? So anything else on that, Chad, you want to add?
No, I don't believe so. Again, I think it's just important that we get some resources in place as far as mentorship, or folks can just talk to and trust, and speak to them in Spanish about some of the issues they've been having, and then just build those out slowly. I'm really scared about over-promising in this particular aspect, because I think that has a bigger risk of alienating folks even further if we overpromise and then aren't able to deliver on stuff. So I want to really start small in regards to sharing out some resources that I've vetted and that the EDC has vetted and that we've built relationships with, and then make sure that we're communicating, very honestly and genuinely about the fact that this is kind of our first time trying this, and we're not good at it yet, and we want to get better. And we need your help, and their help to get better. So, and I think the other resources that I've talked to, like the SCORE mentoring program, they're also in that kind of process of saying, oh my goodness, yes, we need to be building out these resources. So I'm hoping we can all be genuine and honest about those communications and not overpromise. Yeah.
Fabulous. Yeah. Any other questions? Kayla, anything else you want from your committee?
No, I don't think so at this point. I think, our next step really is to work with public health and understand kind of what our path forward is, what our projected timeline is to move into the next phase of protect our neighbors, or what our plan is to stay in the safer at home phase, so that we can be proactive about communicating that out. Because I think that when that information comes down, and it comes down in a manner that causes people to be reactive to it, then that's where a lot of frustration comes from. And so I think if we're proactive in planning to say, whether we move or whether we stay here, here's why, and here's what to expect, and then, here's what to plan for. So you should have a contingency plan on taking a step backwards, and you should have a contingency plan on moving forward a step and then stepping back to where we're at right now. And I think that that's really important when we're talking about economic recovery as a whole, because really right now, like, those public health orders are what's driving everything: child care, school, business, stability, so I think now that things are in a place where they're, we're baby stepping back into school, this is a good place for us, like Sarah and myself, to work with public health to say, okay, let's establish this plan so that we can communicate it out. And then put all that information in one place, like we're getting ready to get our website up and running. And so Chad and I had talked a little bit about this morning, maybe tasking communications with, can you get us a list of all the links of places with information that you'd like us to consolidate into that website? Do you want the Leadville Leadville, Lake County, Twin Lakes, tourism panel website, public health's website, COVID information, financial information, and assistance through the EDC, the SBDC, the Chamber of Commerce. You know, maybe if communications can help us gather that list of resources, that would be helpful in some of that planning measures as well. But I think as far as economic recovery as a whole goes, we need to be able to take those next steps of planning with those public health orders to guide that economic recovery.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance. But I do feel like we're learning as we go. We did that after action review, so if we can learn from where we've been, how to improve it, so that communication's there. Okay.
I think Kayla brings up a great point in regards, and Janine as well, in regards to that learning. We've been through the last phase already. And I think Kayla's point about at least being able to communicate out to the public, like, okay, if we go backwards again, this is what it's going to look like. This is what we've learned from last time. This is what it's going to look like. We've all been through it already. This might be how it's slightly different. This might be how it's the same. And then if we move forward into the next phase, again, this is what we can expect it to look like. And yes, be honest about, the factors change, variables change. It might not look exactly like this, but we are thinking intentionally about what it's going to look like one way or the other, and getting out ahead of it instead of, if a big spike happens and 3 days later we have to say, okay, retailers need to shut down again. Getting out ahead of it as much as we can. And I don't know what a document like that would look like, or a web page like that would look like, or anything. But I think that's important, is to show not only our business owners, but the rest of the community that our organizations are thinking through that, and will communicate that as best we can before decisions need to be made. Even though we know that, those decisions are going to be difficult and may not look exactly like we project. But I think that's important. It doesn't have to be a huge document. It can be something relatively simple, I'm sure, but I think that's important.
Yeah. Great point. All right. I'm going to follow up with a couple of folks about our communications committee and just see if it's going as we need it to, or if there's some things we need to do to improve, or if people have ideas or needs, just to touch base on that, because so much of it keeps coming back to communications. I just want to make sure that if there's anything we need to do, we're thinking broadly about it.
And I'll just butt in here again. I apologize. In regards to reprogramming the CDOT sign, and Kayla mentioned it as well. I'm certainly willing, as a member of that communications committee. I'm not the chair of said committee or anything like that, but if we can get CDOT to reprogram those signs at either end of town to have a similar message for COVID and fire safety information, go to lakecountyco.gov, and then that landing page. If the communications committee can spend the next 3 weeks or so, or month or so, working on exactly what needs to be on that landing page to be an effective communications tool, then we can certainly be tasked with that. Perhaps the other members of the communications committee may not have necessarily the capacity for that, but I think some of us do, and some of us just have the foundational knowledge necessary to put a list like that together. So I think that's something we could probably accomplish, and make that landing page at Lake County Gov or lakecountyco.gov be that tool that we can advertise out on those signs, if that is for the good of the order.
Yeah, I think we need to work on that. I think that does feel like it's a piece, and it showed up in the business advocate interviews that central place of communication is really important. So,
well, I think there's a lot of other places where they have those signs, as you're like on their gateway signs when you're pulling into that community. It's like, mask up, welcome to Lake County, where, like, put on your mask, Could we print some banners and just put them on our gateway signs? Sarah, Dallas, what are your thoughts on that?
Can we do it on the old gateway signs that aren't torn down yet?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just throwing out ideas. I just don't know the best place to put it. So just trying to brainstorm some ideas, and by the way, I'm totally down with the artwork provided by Harper Rose Studios.
Yes. The billboard south of town, I think, is a good place for us to put up, that currently has the home of CMC and recreation banner up there. I am not so sure about north of town though, although like Sarah says, maybe the Panther and the Leadville sign.
Yeah, the on top of it all, Rockies, the wood signs,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
greened, and that's kind of
Put a
what.
mask on the Panther.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wanted to just give a little anecdote for you all on this call. There was some state inspectors up for some other things that popped in unannounced this week about some issues with a couple things, and their feedback, just so you know, is that they are traveling the state of Colorado for inspections all over on things, and they said what they observed, granted it was just their one pop-in, but more mask wearing in Lake County and in specifically city limits Leadville in those businesses than they've seen in many other parts of the state.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
So just wanted to give you that anecdotal feedback that we heard on an email, which kind of at least feels like, somehow we should also message that to businesses and citizens that, yes, this is a statewide and a national issue, but, in terms of what people are observing traveling the state for work because they have to, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So that answers.
Sorry, Donna, go ahead.
That's okay. That answers the question that I had, because I was wondering if we feel like we're not seeing enough people wear masks, if it's something that we should be promoting harder through the tourism panel. I mean, we have it in all of our materials, but do you feel like we should be pushing it more through social media and whatnot?
I mean, I don't think it hurts. I think it just helps amplify that message and to be consistent with that and not, be, too
Well, again,
loud.
I think it's one of those business advocacy pieces that whatever we can do to demonstrate that we are trying to take as much pressure off of our business owners as the frontline enforcers of these rules will be the small wins that can really help build us some trust. And even if that messaging only helps by 5%, whatever. But if we can get those to preview the business advocacy, we're going to be coming back to this group and saying this is one of our big goals and one of our easy wins that we can hopefully get done. Reprogramming those signs, maybe putting those banners up that Kayla's talking about. And Sarah's going to kill me here, but I did ask her about maybe putting a mask on the heart of the We Love Leadville sign. If we can figure out something classy for that.
Yeah, and I think that would be great.
We'll try.
Sounds great. Chad, if you do, and you either let me know or take a picture and send it to me, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. We're going to hopefully have something that's transparent, not opaque.
Okay.
And that doesn't look like lingerie, I suppose.
I think it's interesting. It would be fascinating to just look at it from a social science perspective in a community where people have to think about what they are wearing anywhere they go, anytime they go somewhere. Like, in Leadville, you have to think about whether you take a coat or whether you think about you take that extra layer, or, if you're wearing shorts, do you have long pants to put on? And it may just be that extra thought that people give to what they have on when they head out. That's benefit for us. So who knows, but if we can figure that out and then capitalize on it, keep doing it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I really liked from the Climax CPP meeting yesterday that they were encouraging their employees to commit to the 3 W's: wear your mask, wash your hands, watch your distance. And so I thought that was kind of cool if we can if we can just promote that a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I like that too. I know Eagle has that. They have like 5 commitments or something. I don't,
Yeah.
you know, so I think if we simply, oh,
Yeah, definitely.
So I just want to make sure that folks on the call were aware that Beth Helmke put together this great business resources toolkit that has a bunch of graphics in there. And so that has already been developed if anyone wants to use it, just to save reinventing the wheel.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna.
Yep. I'll try to get the link and put it in the chat.
All right. Does anybody have anything else that we'd like to check in with? Janine, do you have anything further?
No, I think that's it. I think we've covered a lot.
All right.
So I guess the only thing is, do we want to commit to meeting every 2 weeks and keep that as a regular schedule, or do we have a feel for that?
I'm good
Yeah,
with every 2 weeks.
I know the Business Advocacy Committee is going to be meeting next Thursday to discuss what we're going to be advocating for, and we would love to be able to report back to you guys one way or the other about what those 3 main or 4 main goals are going to be, and to get commitment from everybody that we're going to work toward those goals and provide the staffing and resources necessary to go back to our businesses and tell them we're doing something.
So 2 weeks from now, would that work then?
Yeah.
Or are you proposing that we meet next week, Chad?
We're not meeting until Thursday of next week because that's when everybody's schedule worked out. So if it works for this group to meet the week after, that's great. But I would fully anticipate either myself or Nova Sassen reaching out perhaps to give a preview to this group just so we can start working and corralling resources as quickly as possible once we agree. So I hope we can all communicate via email in that regard or via phone conversations or one-on-ones. But you know, to publicly come back together the week after to kind of reaffirm that and to let each other know, okay, this is what the advocacy group said. These were the conversations we had since then. This is our plan of action moving forward. Then we'll all be on the same page so we can go back and talk to our business owners and communicate what we're doing.
Sounds good. So business advocates next Thursday, and the following one would be recovery. And maybe we should just send out an email to folks about when those every other week dates would be.
Okay.
Would that be helpful?
That would
Yeah.
definitely be helpful. Yeah, thank
I can
you.
do that. I can do that, Janine, if you'd like.
Yeah. And then maybe just include the public meeting Zoom information.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.